Special session over. A look at the winners and losers after the legislature is forced to act on property taxes. A wealthy businessman unveils a plan that would make it easier for him to be elected governor. An emergency alert in the middle of the night to tell people there's no emergency.
My first thoughts were, oh no, something's wrong at Suncor. This is scary. And then my second thought was, why did you wake me up for this?
And refugee families gather to celebrate their own traditions and Thanksgiving in their new home. Tonight on Next. Denver police say a guy with a rifle was yelling and chasing people in a park downtown today. Officers shot and killed him. Denver police responded to calls for help from Commons Park near 15th and Little Raven. It was around 3:30 this afternoon. The chief says the man with the long gun did not respond to what officers told him and then fired at those officers. 2 officers shot back, hitting and killing the man. All this in a park busy with runners and cyclists.
Not an ideal situation, but the officers, I think, were very aware of their backgrounds, very aware that there was no one else within, their side of fire, their line of fire. The vantage points that they had. I think that the public was safe.
No officers were hurt. Chief Thomas says that bullets from the suspect's rifle hit a police car where an officer had been taking cover. Voters overwhelmingly rejected Democrats' Prop HH tax plan. So Democrats basically gave it to voters anyway, at least the parts that they could pass in a weekend special session without voter approval. Similar changes to property taxes, similar changes to Tabor refunds to use them to redistribute income. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger explains.
One special session bill will reduce your increase in property tax next year, and another will give every tax filer an equal Tabor refund. Both are temporary, and both are similar to what was in Prop HH. Let's start with the property tax bill. Once again, your bill next year will increase because your home's value increased. For people with a $500,000 home, your property tax bill will be about $209 fewer than it would have been with no action from lawmakers. And for a $1 million home, it's about a $232 reduction in next year's increase. Democrats passed this without Republican support, and even some of the Democratic support was not complete. Listen to Democratic State Representative Javier Mabry, who wanted more relief for renters.
We will be back, and we will be back to fight for more for those who cannot afford to own their own homes.
Depending on how much a renter earns in income, they may benefit from the changes made to next year's Tabor refunds. Prop HH promised equal Tabor refunds for all. Lawmakers passed equal Tabor refunds for all, $800 for each tax filer, twice as much if you file jointly. It's actually $100 fewer than what was in Prop HH because lawmakers used Tabor money to expand the earned income tax credit for low-income earners. Who are the winners? Low-income earners and people who own high-valued homes. Who are the losers? High-income earners who will now get much less in a Tabor refund. The special session was basically Democrats passing what they wanted, regardless of Republican input. And the second highest Republican in the House wants to see that change.
Bipartisanship doesn't just mean Republicans putting their names on Democrat bills. It also means Democrats putting your names on Republican bills. We have ideas, too.
I cannot tell you today what your actual savings on your next property tax increase will be. Why? Because the local governments that you pay your property taxes to just got the math from the state, and now this goes back to a story from a week and a half ago. They can decide if they need to lower their mills to take in less of an increase also, as you all said, hey, why do they need a 40% increase? If I don't, if I'm paying 40% more, why do their budget need to go up 40%? They can reduce their mills, which might actually increase your decrease of your next property tax bill.
You had me until the end, and then I lost the plot.
I think I lost it too.
That's fine. Fair to say, $200 property tax break is not nearly the amount that most people's property taxes are going to go up next year.
Right. I can't say it enough. Your property tax bill is going to go up next year. So this is just bringing that increase down a little bit. This is temporary. It's just 1 year. Anything beyond this next property tax bill, that's going to be the next legislative session. So there's going to be more of this. The rest of Prop HH is now up for debate because we did just this year's version.
Marshall, thank you very much. Republican opposition barely made a blip during the special session. I mean, there are so few of them there in the legislature these days. What we are beginning to see play out is the battle between the Democrats who are in leadership at the Capitol and the far left members of their caucus. Progressives and protesters inside and outside the Capitol used the weekend special session to call attention to the plight of the Palestinian people.
Colorado kids are hungry, and those of us who want to support both Colorado kids, saying if saying that phrase makes you that upset, then it's even more important that I say it. Free Palestine.
That was Democratic Rep. Elizabeth Epps from Denver, who twice tried and failed to amend a bill to keep expanded food benefits from being used to purchase products from the occupied territories, which she identified in her amendment as the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem. Her fellow Democrats refused to allow a vote on it last night. It failed in a bipartisan vote today, as Elizabeth Epps was talking about Palestinians. When Republican Rep. Ron Weinberg, who's Jewish, rose to speak about his view of the Israel-Hamas conflict, Epps then joined pro-Palestinian protesters up in the House gallery and disrupted Weinberg's speech.
The ignorance shown.
Representative Weinberg, hold on for one moment, please. If there is another disturbance from the gallery, I will ask people to be removed from the gallery. Representative Weinberg.
The ignorance shown is what hurts me the most. We have to come back to being
Representative
Americans.
Weinberg, please hold for one moment. The House will stand in recess.
Law enforcement closed the visitors' gallery due to Representative Epps' disruptions. Democrats went up there to negotiate with her, and she eventually left. Last night, Representative Epps posted on social media suggesting that her fellow Democrats in the legislature are apartheid defenders, and she said they have blood on their hands. A wealthy business leader, long thought to be eyeing a run for governor of Colorado, is going to try to change how Colorado elects a governor. Colorado Sun was first to report on a proposed ballot initiative that would implement ranked choice voting and eliminate party primaries. The proposal comes from Kent Thiry. If you know the name, he's the former CEO of DaVita, the dialysis company. He's been involved in all kinds of ballot projects over the years. Thiry says he wants to introduce open primaries for statewide offices where all the candidates would be on one ballot regardless of party affiliation. They do it like that in California. The top 4 candidates would advance to a general election, irrespective of party, and then they would be selected by a ranked choice system where you'd rank, this is my first choice, second choice, third choice. Thiry says that would open up Colorado politics to unaffiliated candidates. Colorado Republican Party said Thiry's just trying to create a path for him to get elected governor in 2026. The emergency alert hit phones at 4:30 on Sunday morning, warning people near the Suncor refinery that there was no emergency. Why in the world are they waking people up for that? Steve Staker is asking for a sleep-deprived community.
We were sleeping, and all of a sudden, my wife's phone and my phone start blaring that emergency noise.
The FCC won't allow me to play the alert tone that woke Jeff Ruane and his wife up early on Sunday morning, so I asked him to recreate it. Perfect.
And it's an alert from Suncor, which, if you live in North Denver or Commerce City, it's kind of a specter hanging over your head of what is Suncor doing right now.
The message at 4:30 a.m. read, "Public safety alert. Suncor refinery will have excessive flaring visible. There is no emergency."
It's an emergency alert for a non-emergency.
That alert wasn't sent by Suncor. It was sent by Adams County's dispatch center. A supervisor there told me by phone this afternoon that they sent the message because Suncor asked them to. We reached out to Suncor to see why a non-emergency necessitated waking people in the area up on a Sunday morning, and haven't heard back yet.
Something that is not threatening, like what is described in this message, is not necessarily the thing that you want to use your communication capital on.
Jeanette Sutton researches alerts and warnings at the University of Albany and has created a dashboard for emergency leaders to write better messages. She says a wireless emergency alert, or WIA, may not have been the best choice here.
They're intended to wake people up from a deep sleep, to alert them to a significant threat or danger in their area that they need to respond to immediately.
State law requires Suncor have an opt-in alerting system, and they do. In fact, the last message they sent back on September 3rd was a warning about flaring not being an emergency. The difference, that message went out only to people who signed up. Sundays went out to every cell phone in a community already skeptical about the refinery.
There have been emergencies at Suncor that don't go out over the emergency alert system, and that should be what goes out, not there is no emergency.
Suncor's opt-in emergency notification system was part of a settlement agreement between Suncor and the state over pollution issues a few years ago. State law only requires Suncor to alert if certain toxins are released, not if they're flaring. We asked ADCOM, the 911 center, for any written policies they have on communicating what Suncor tells them to communicate. An administrator wasn't in the office today, so they're going to look for us in the future here and try to see if they can get us the policy for something like this.
Yeah, because I imagine just them being like, hey, you want to wake everybody up to tell them everything's cool? Just
Everything's
send
good.
that out.
You're
going
going
to
see some stuff, but don't worry about it.
As you've pointed out time and time again, as frustrating as this is, and sometimes it's funny if it's not happening to you, right?
Yeah,
like, oh,
sure.
okay. This is why people turn off the alerts, ignore the alerts, and that can have life-threatening consequences.
And we don't know how many people have turned their alerts off because the FCC doesn't have really good data on that. But the thought is, and I see a lot of people anecdotally after these things say, that annoyed me so much I've decided to shut these things off. The problem is when you shut them off and something really is happening, there actually is an emergency at 4:30 in the morning, you don't get that notification.
Yep. Steve Sager, thank you.
Yep.
Really grateful to all of you who helped out Food Bank for Larimer County through your latest Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign. You raised more than $50,000 in a couple of days as they're working up there to replace a food truck that they used to bring meals to kids in need in northern Colorado. It's like a brightly colored truck. It looks just like any other food truck. The idea is to get rid of the stigma around accepting a free meal. Your weekly micro-giving has raised $11.6 million for nonprofits across Colorado. If you know of a holiday effort that could use our collective help, email me that idea, please. Next at 9news.com.
She was family, too. I didn't know her, but I feel a connection to her.
1 year since the Club Q shooting, survivors are still healing, still carrying the memory of those lost. Would not take much more than a dusting of snow on Thanksgiving to make the record books around here. It might happen. And setting out a Thanksgiving meal for our new neighbors, refugees, who bring their own traditions to the table. Next. Denver's Thanksgiving weather tends to be a bit drier than your aunt's turkey. She means well, but there is potential for snow by week's end. Would not take much to break the Thanksgiving snow record. If Denver gets more than an inch of snow Thursday, it would be the snowiest Thanksgiving in 36 years. It's only snowed more than an inch on Thanksgiving 3 times in the last 74 years. It was 1987 that was the whopper, 5 inches of snow on Thanksgiving. Kathy Stabman, what are the chances?
I think I'm saying there's a chance. How about that? Corey Reppenhagen is so smart, and we are fine-tuning this forecast. But the area of low pressure, the models have it today cut off over northern Utah, and that is not a favorable location for accumulating snow on Thursday. Now, Friday is a whole different story. But how about the storm today? This storm is moving out. It's been a windy, cold day with temperatures this afternoon in the 40s. Some areas rain, other areas snow. Once skies clear tonight, temperatures will drop like a rock. We get a break, and then that second storm coming in at the end of the week. This is the center of circulation pulling away from Colorado. Snow ending from north to south on the I-25 corridor. Still a bullseye of snow. Palmer Lake, Colorado Springs, out to the Lyman area. Denver's basically done. Roads are dry. I-70 still going to be icy and snowpacked in some areas. Winter weather and travel advisories for Colorado Springs and down over the southern foothills. Those will cancel out at 11 o'clock tonight. Current readings still above freezing, and we're watching the wind, which has been so gusty this afternoon, continue to blow 30 to 40 miles per hour. But that's all part of the system that is moving out. We will see temperatures bottom out in the 20s tonight, so a pretty cold night coming up, but a nice warming trend for 2 days. Cool and cloudy for Thanksgiving, and then accumulating snow possible by Friday afternoon.
The survivors of the Club Q shooting remember the family, friends, and total strangers they lost that night.
We have some traditional Jewish foods as well, some Mediterranean, Middle Eastern shawarma, so we've got everything.
The first Thanksgiving was a blending of cultures, and so is this one. Next. Yesterday marked 1 year since the mass shooting at Club Q in Colorado Springs. People gathered outside that club yesterday to remember the 5 lives lost. The recovery, both physical and emotional, is far from over. One of the survivors is 64-year-old Ed Sanders. He was shot twice that night. He'd been a regular at that bar for 20 years. It was a safe haven for the LGBTQ community in the Springs. Sanders was friends with Club Q bartenders Derek Rump and Daniel Aston, who were among the 5 killed. He did not know Kelly Loving, but he comforted her in her final moments.
She fell in my arms, basically, when we all got hit. She wasn't breathing. She didn't say anything. We tried to talk her into breathing and give her some last words of comfort that she could hear. I recognized her face the next day when they published the pictures. She was family, too. I didn't know her, but I feel a connection to her.
Today, Sanders honored both Kelly Loving and Daniel Aston at a Transgender Day of Remembrance event in the Springs. Sanders has formed a relationship with Loving's sister in the year since the shooting. They even got together to celebrate Loving's birthday. Club Q's owners are ready to move forward, a new spot, a new start. The bar is closed as the owners work on a permanent memorial that will feature the 5 victims. And then they're going to reopen the club in a new location. It'll be inside the Satellite Hotel in southern Colorado Springs. And it'll be called The Q. The owners haven't said when that memorial is expected to be finished or when the new version of the club will open. Tonight, hundreds of people are going to sit down to a Thanksgiving table set with food from around the world. It is a welcome of sorts for hundreds of refugees in Colorado. The African Community Center of Denver has been hosting this Thanksgiving dinner for 18 years, and they're expecting 1,000 people at tonight's event. From countries including Cuba and Ukraine, Afghanistan, Democratic Republic of the Congo. The center always provides the traditional American Thanksgiving dishes, but right alongside traditional meals from those other cultures. The center says they see it as a way to integrate newcomers into American culture and make sure that everybody also feels welcome.
A lot of the people coming tonight, they've been in the U.S. for less than a year. They're trying to get on their feet, they're trying to get a job, move into a new house, and so we're just trying to offer them a space where they can feel welcome, relax. There's going to be dancing, music that they recognize from their country, so it's just time for them to relax and us to show our gratitude for them.
And the volunteers for the dinner have also put together hygiene kits, a bunch of items that typically are not covered by state or federal benefits, things that those families can use. Should mention, if the name African Community Center sounds familiar, back in 2021, one of your most successful Word of Thanks micro-giving campaigns ever. This was after the fall of Afghanistan when a ton of refugees were headed into our community. You raised more than $250,000 to support that nonprofit's work in our community as they help refugees with meals, housing, education, and more. Back with your feedback next. You always get the final word around here. Heather writes in to say that she got that Suncor emergency alert dead of night on Sunday morning. So I got the alert. It was terrifying, she says, to be woken up to an emergency alert just to see that it is not an emergency. Heather, whatever you do, don't turn off the alerts. We're going to stay on them to try and get this system more functional, but people need to get the alerts for the time that it is a real emergency. Allison says if voters did not approve Prop HH, how can the legislature go to a special session and vote it into law? Well, there's widespread agreement, Allison, that there needed to be a special session to do something about property taxes. The question was what to do. And there was disagreement between progressives and centrist Democrats and Republicans on what that was going to be. Shirley says, great jacket. Are you also wearing a kilt? Shirley, some things are better left to the imagination, or not even that.